We're joined now by CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman to talk a little bit about this case. Thanks for joining us, Rikki.
Thank you.
So, listen, you've been an attorney on both sides, defense and prosecution. Based on what we know right now, what sort of defense do you think this gentleman could have?
There is only one defense possible in this case, considering the fact of the eyewitnesses to the case, the chase, and that he allegedly has made statements. The only defense is the insanity defense, if, in fact, there is a basis for it. So if you are either appointed by the court to represent him in South Carolina, or if you're retained by the family to represent him, should you have sufficient resources to retain an attorney, that the first thing this lawyer has to do is get him evaluated for competency. That is he competent to assist in his own defense? Will he be able to say, this is the prosecutor, this is the judge, this is the defense lawyer? Does he understand the charges? Once that evaluation takes place, and it doesn't take very much to be found competent, we would really look as a defense team, you'd look at the ability to find out if you have an insanity defense. So you would either get a court-appointed psychiatric professional or retain a psychiatrist who would examine the defendant over a period of time to see if they could diagnose him with a mental disease or defect that affected his ability to know right from wrong. Now, if none of that comes up for the defense, then you got a problem. You got to try to plead this case to life.
So let's talk about that. You know, we've already talked before about how the insanity defense is, you know, off most of the time it doesn't work, and it's different in different states. Do you think that the goal may be just to save his life? Because we are talking about a state where there's the death penalty.
It may be. Ultimately, that may be the only thing you can do. We have certainly witnessed the trial of Tsarnaev in Boston, the Boston bomber, where Judy Clark and David Bruck and others came in to defend him. And the only thing that was an issue there was life or death. Certainly people like Judy Clark and other public defenders, other people who have come to the cause because they simply believe that there should not be a death penalty, that lawyers like that would go in and fight for his life.
You know, when you mentioned the insanity defense, we talked a lot about that in regards to the Colorado theater shooting. Very particular type of defense there. Is there anything different in South Carolina?
Well, here, really what we're dealing with is we don't know yet what this young man's history is. We don't know if he has a mental health history. We've heard he was a bit odd. We've heard perhaps he was involved with a bit of drugs. We've heard the other side, too. There are people who said, oh, no, he was normal in school. We don't know what his history is. When we look at each state to state, each state has their own particular vagaries about the insanity defense. But whether or not the burden's on the government or the burden is on the defense, ultimately, I always say that doesn't matter. What only matters is really what the experts say and which expert is believed. This would be a very tough case to win on an insanity defense simply because the crime is so heinous. If we look at the fact that this took place inside a church, that this young man sat there for an hour during a prayer service, is there nothing sacred? So an insanity defense may be the only ethical way that he can be defended. But ultimately, assuming he would be found guilty regardless of the insanity defense, there may be a question about life or death, about his mental state, certainly his age. He is 21. The question, of course, does he have a prior record? It sounds like he has prior arrests, but really for some things that are minor, but not prior convictions. But this is all preliminary. As the police say, this is what we know at this time. This is a preliminary investigation. From what we know right now, his age alone and the idea that even the mayor has said that this was a crime that was deranged. This person was deranged. And I know that was a colloquial statement, but we don't understand people who are this bad. So we have to kind of think they must be mad.
Yeah, indeed. Let's talk about this business of this being a hate crime and why it's a hate crime versus domestic terrorism. I know he stood up and he made some statements that indicated that he was there particularly to shoot African-American people. But why isn't this a case of domestic terrorism?
When we look at what the law says domestic terrorism or foreign terrorism is, terrorism must be political. That is the point of a terrorist act. This is not political, but it is about race. There is no question that this is about race. If we believe that what we have heard is correct, that the statements he made in the church, that the statements he has made about wanting to go there to kill black people, the other derogatory statement, if he in fact made it, because again, we're getting this from sources at a preliminary time, that he said that he had to kill black people because they were murdering and raping white people. And I'm paraphrasing what the sources said. If you look at his Facebook page, he is wearing a jacket that has the symbols of apartheid in South Africa and in another country in Africa. He is someone who clearly went there, from what we know, to kill black people in a black church, the AME church, for heaven's sake, a church that he may not have known, but in the history of this country is a church that really stood to help and comfort African Americans. It's about race. It is not about domestic terrorism.
Yeah. Rikki Klieman, CBS News legal analyst, thank you so much.